It was the kind of night that could break anyone. Cold rain slapped against the windows, the wind howling through the trees. Jack Anderson, a single dad working a full-time job as a truck driver, returned to his modest suburban home after a long day on the road. He was exhausted. But as he turned the corner and saw something that didn't belong on his porch, everything changed. A young woman, drenched from the rain, sat huddled on the doorstep, her hands clasped tightly around her knees. She was crying. "Hey, are you all right?" Jack called out, his voice rough from both fatigue and concern. The girl looked up, her face pale and streaked with tears. She didn't say much, just stared at him with eyes full of fear and vulnerability. I don't know where to go," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Please, can I stay here? Just for a night. I don't have anywhere else." Despite everything, despite the exhaustion, despite the worry about his daughter, Jack couldn't turn her away. Little did he know, the girl wasn't just any stranger. She was Emily Harris, the daughter of a multi-billionaire CEO. And this simple act of kindness would change his life forever. Jack Anderson's life had always been simple. He had never craved luxuries, never needed more than the essentials. A 36-year-old man, Jack had become a single father 5 years ago, when his wife, Mia, died unexpectedly in a car accident. Since then, Jack had focused solely on raising their 7-year-old daughter, Lily. He had no time for himself, no time for a social life, only the grind. Jack worked as a truck driver, driving across the state for days at a time, picking up freight and delivering goods. His life revolved around Lily, and his world was limited to his small 2-bedroom house on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much. The roof leaked when it rained, the walls were thin, and the floor creaked underfoot. But it was enough. It was home. The only thing Jack had to look forward to every day was coming home to Lily. She was his world. But on the night he met Emily, everything changed. It had started like any other evening, with Jack pulling into the driveway after a long haul. But when he saw the figure on his doorstep, his world shifted. "Hey, are you all right?" Jack asked again, his voice breaking the silence of the night. He had already put his truck in park and was walking towards her. The girl looked up, and for a moment, Jack thought she was about to speak. But all she did was wipe her face, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry. I don't know where to go. Can I stay here for just one night?" Jack hesitated for only a second before his instincts took over. His heart softened. "Come on inside. I have an extra room. It's not much, but it's warm." The girl nodded gratefully, her shoulders still hunched from the cold. She stepped into the warmth of Jack's house, and as the door closed behind them, Jack's life as he knew it began to unravel. Her name was Emily, she told him. She was a runaway, but she didn't say much more than that. She seemed desperate, and Jack couldn't help but feel sorry for her. She was clearly in trouble. As she took the offered bed in the extra room, Emily barely spoke. Jack didn't press her for details. It wasn't his business. He just gave her space, offering her a roof for the night. The next morning, she seemed to have calmed down. But still, Jack noticed a deep sadness in her eyes, a burden she wasn't ready to share. Days passed, and Emily stayed in the guest room. She never asked for anything more than what Jack had offered. She didn't seem to want to intrude on his life, but she also didn't seem to want to talk about hers. Jack wasn't sure what to make of her, why she had been alone that night, why she was running. But he noticed that, slowly, she started to help around the house. She would wash the dishes after meals, fold the laundry, and even occasionally play with Lily. Jack could see how much Lily had taken to Emily. The two of them seemed to bond instantly. Lily, despite her young age, was a perceptive child, and she could tell that Emily was someone who needed kindness, not pity. She quickly started calling Emily Aunt Emily, and Jack couldn't help but smile at their budding friendship. It gave him hope, a small light in the darkness of his routine. But despite the surface-level tranquility in the house, Jack could feel that Emily was hiding something bigger than the troubles she had shared. He had asked her once about her past, but she had clammed up. She seemed to retreat deeper into herself every time the subject came up. Jack respected her privacy, but it bothered him. There was something off about her. He didn't know what it was, but he had lived long enough to recognize when someone was holding back. One evening, Jack arrived home late, after a long day on the road. He was tired, his back aching. But when he walked into the kitchen to grab a drink, something caught his eye. There, on the counter, was a letter addressed to Emily. The return address was from Harris Technologies. The name struck Jack immediately. Harris Technologies was the leading tech company in the country, run by one of the most powerful CEOs, Catherine Harris. Jack's pulse quickened as he picked up the letter. The handwriting on the envelope was elegant, the kind of handwriting that suggested wealth, prestige, and as soon as he opened the letter, the words hit him like a ton of bricks. It was an invitation to a gala hosted by Harris Technologies, an exclusive event for the elite of the tech world. But the most shocking part was the name at the top of the letter, Emily Harris. Jack's hand shook as he processed the information. Emily wasn't just some girl on the run. She wasn't a victim of circumstance. She was the daughter of one of the wealthiest women in the country. She had lied to him. She had kept this from him. The realization hit him hard, and he found himself struggling to understand why she had kept it a secret. Was it because she was embarrassed? Or did she have a deeper reason for hiding her true identity? When Emily returned that evening, Jack was waiting for her. He didn't know how to approach the subject, but the truth had to come out. "Emily," Jack began, his voice calm but firm. "I found the letter." She froze, her face paling. Her eyes widened with shock. But she didn't say anything immediately. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jack pressed, his frustration growing. "Why didn't you tell me who you really are?" Emily sat down, her hands shaking slightly. She opened her mouth to speak but hesitated. After a long pause, she finally said, "I didn't want you to see me differently. I didn't want you to think of me as just a rich girl. I didn't want to be treated like, I don't know, some kind of trophy or something. I wanted to be someone normal, someone who wasn't defined by my family's name." Jack nodded slowly, trying to digest her words. "I understand why you didn't want to tell me. But you should have trusted me. You didn't need to hide from me, Emily." Emily looked down, her voice breaking slightly. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was running away from everything my mother, the company, the life they had planned for me. But now I'm scared of losing the only family I've had in years." Jack's heart softened as he saw the vulnerability in her eyes. He reached out, taking her hand gently. "You didn't lose me, Emily. You never will." After their conversation, things were never quite the same between Emily and Jack. There was a noticeable shift in their interactions, subtle but undeniable. Jack found himself wondering what Emily was really running from, why she had hidden her true identity. He wanted to give her space, to allow her the time she needed to heal, but the walls she had put up felt like they were growing higher each day. Emily, on the other hand, felt a mixture of guilt and relief. She had finally confessed part of her truth to Jack, but there was still so much more that she wasn't ready to share. Her past, her family, and the life she had left behind. She couldn't bear the idea of facing it all again. She was terrified of losing the simple life she had started to build here with Jack and Lily. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that Catherine's looming presence was always just around the corner. One night, after dinner, Emily found herself sitting in the living room, staring out the window, lost in thought. The rain had started again, a constant, rhythmic tapping against the glass. Jack walked in quietly, leaning against the doorframe, watching her. "Emily," he said softly, "I know you've been carrying a lot, but I need you to understand that whatever you're running from, whatever's haunting you, you don't have to do it alone. We're here. I'm here." She turned to him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "I wish it were that easy, Jack. I can't just leave it all behind, not when it's been my entire life. You don't know what it's like. My mother, the company, everything I've been taught to value. It's all a lie. But I can't escape it. Jack took a step toward her, his voice steady. Then let me help you fight it. You don't have to go back to that world. You've built something real here, Emily. A family. And we can keep it. Emily looked down, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight her, Jack. To fight all of it. Jack knelt down in front of her, placing a hand on hers. You're stronger than you think. And you have us. Lily and me, we're with you every step of the way. Emily looked at him, her heart aching. She had never felt so torn. On one hand, there was the life she wanted, the one with Jack and Lily, filled with love and acceptance. On the other, there was the reality of her family, her legacy, and the pressure to return to a world that suffocated her. She wasn't sure if she could have both. The following week, as Emily was sorting through some old papers in the living room, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw it. She knew who it was. Catherine. Emily. Catherine's voice came through the phone, sharp and commanding. You've had your time to figure things out. But it's time for you to come home. I've made arrangements for you. Your room is ready. And the company needs you. Emily's heart sank as she listened to her mother's calm, businesslike tone. The pressure, the expectation, it was all coming back. She squeezed the phone tightly in her hand. But her voice remained steady. I'm not coming back, Mom. Catherine sighed, a sound that made Emily feel small. You're making a mistake. You think you can live like this, but you can't. You don't belong in that little house with them. You were made for something bigger, Emily. For power, for influence, for the future of this company. I don't care about the company, Emily said, her voice trembling with both fear and defiance. I don't want that life anymore. Catherine's voice hardened. Then you'll regret this. Mark my words. I will come for you, Emily. I'll make you see sense. Emily ended the call before her mother could say more, but the words haunted her. She had never felt more torn. She couldn't shake the guilt, the pressure of what was expected of her, but as she put the phone down, she felt a surge of anger. She was more than her family's legacy. She was more than Catherine's puppet. Jack, who had overheard part of the conversation, walked over to her. His expression was one of concern, but there was a quiet strength in his eyes. Emily, he said softly, whatever you decide, we're in this together. You don't have to face her alone. Emily wiped a tear from her cheek. I don't know how much longer I can keep running, Jack. I don't know if I can escape her. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, offering reassurance. You don't have to run anymore. You're not alone. A week later, Emily's worst fear became a reality. Catherine Harris arrived at Jack's house. It was a cold, sunny afternoon when Jack noticed the sleek black car parked outside. He didn't need to guess who it was. He walked outside to meet her. And there she stood, Catherine, as regal and imposing as ever, her eyes cold as steel. She didn't even greet him. She simply stared at him, sizing him up. You're the one who's been filling my daughter's head with this nonsense, I assume, Catherine said, her voice dripping with disdain. She doesn't belong here. She belongs with me, with our company. She's throwing away everything I've worked for. Jack didn't back down. Emily's not throwing anything away. She's choosing a life that makes her happy. You can't force her back into your world. Catherine scoffed. You don't understand. You're a truck driver. You have no idea what it means to build something, to have a legacy. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. And Emily? She's the future of that legacy. Jack stood firm, but Emily appeared in the doorway, her voice cutting through the tension. Mom, I've made my choice. I'm not going back. Catherine's face tightened, her jaw clenching. You'll regret this, Emily. You always do. With that, Catherine turned and walked away, but not before giving Jack one last icy look. Emily stood there, watching her mother leave, the weight of the situation heavy on her shoulders. Jack approached Emily slowly, his voice soft but filled with conviction. You made the right choice, Emily. You don't owe her anything. Emily nodded, her throat tight. She wasn't sure yet if she believed that, but she was starting to feel it. This was her life now, and she was finally ready to take control of it. In the days that followed, Emily and Jack grew closer. They talked more, laughed more, and started to build a future they both wanted. Emily found a job at a local cafe. Something simple but fulfilling. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was living for herself. Lily, who had been a beacon of light in Emily's life from the beginning, continued to draw pictures of their family. She made sure to include Emily in every drawing, calling her Aunt Emily without hesitation. It was a small but significant gesture that made Emily realize just how much she had come to mean to this little girl. Jack, too, found himself falling for Emily in ways he hadn't expected. He had always been focused on his daughter, on survival, on keeping his head down, but Emily had brought something new into his life. Hope, love, and the possibility of something more. One evening, as they all sat around the dinner table, Lily looked up from her plate with a bright smile. "Mom," she said, turning to Emily, "are we going to be a family now? All of us?" Emily's heart swelled. It was a simple question, but it meant everything. She looked at Jack, who smiled back at her. "Yes, Lily. I think we already are." Jack reached across the table, taking Emily's hand in his. It was a small gesture, but it felt like the beginning of something new, something real. They had both come from broken places, but together, they were building something that felt stronger than anything either of them had ever known. A few months passed, and though Emily's past still haunted her at times, she had found peace in the life she was building with Jack and Lily. Catherine's presence was still felt, but Emily knew now that she was the one in control of her destiny. One morning, as Jack prepared to head out for work, Emily stood in the doorway watching him. "Jack," she said, her voice filled with determination, "I want to thank you for everything. You've given me a chance to live a life I didn't think was possible." Jack smiled, walking over to her and placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me. You've done the hard work, Emily. You chose this life. You're stronger than you know." Emily smiled, feeling the weight of the past lifting off her shoulders. She had chosen this path, and for the first time in years, she felt ready for whatever came next. Together, with Jack, Lily, and a future they could build, Emily had found what she had been searching for all along. A family. Life seemed to settle into a peaceful rhythm for Emily, Jack, and Lily. Emily's job at the local cafe was going well. She was starting to feel more connected to the community, and her bond with Lily was growing stronger every day. They would spend evenings together, drawing, playing board games, and sharing stories about their day. But as with all things that seemed too good to be true, trouble wasn't far behind. One evening, after a long shift at the cafe, Emily returned home to find Jack sitting at the kitchen table. His face grim, he looked up as she entered. His usual calm demeanor replaced with an expression she hadn't seen before. Something more serious, more concerned. "Jack?" Emily asked, setting her keys down. "What's wrong?" Jack motioned for her to sit down. "Emily, I got a call today. From your mother." Emily froze. Her heart skipped a beat. She had hoped that the confrontation between her and Catherine had been the last. But here it was, creeping back into her life. "She's been looking into us," Jack continued, his voice low. "She knows about Lily. She knows where you are." Emily's mind raced. "What does she want?" Jack sighed. "She's threatening legal action. She wants you back, Emily. And now she's pushing for custody of Lily. She wants to take her from here." The words hit Emily like a punch to the gut. She had been trying to move on from the hold her mother had on her, trying to build a life where she wasn't controlled by the expectations of a powerful corporation. But this was a different kind of battle. Her mother wasn't just trying to control her anymore. She was trying to take away the one thing that truly mattered to Emily, her new family. "I won't let her do this," Emily said, her voice trembling. "She can't take Lily. Lily is mine. She's my responsibility. Jack placed a hand on hers. We'll fight this together, Emily. You're not alone in this. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She had never felt so helpless. She had spent so much of her life trying to please her mother, to meet the impossible expectations placed on her. And now, when she finally had a chance to build something real with Jack and Lily, Catherine was pulling her back into that world. But Emily wasn't the same girl she had been when she first ran away. She had changed, and she wasn't going to let her mother take that away from her. "Let's call a lawyer," Jack said, pulling out his phone. "We need to fight this. We'll do it the right way." Emily nodded, wiping away a tear. She didn't know how this would end. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let her mother control her anymore. She had found something worth fighting for, her family, and she would do whatever it took to keep it. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Jack threw themselves into the legal battle. They met with lawyers, gathered evidence, and prepared for the fight ahead. Emily was determined to stand her ground, but the more she learned about her mother's influence, the more overwhelmed she felt. Catherine was powerful, and she had resources at her disposal that Emily could never match. But Emily's resolve was unwavering. The toll this fight took on Emily was evident. She began to feel the strain in every part of her life. The cafe became a place of escape, but even there, the weight of the situation followed her. She found herself exhausted, mentally and emotionally drained. Jack did his best to support her, but even he couldn't shield her from the oncoming storm. One day, as Emily sat at the kitchen table, looking over a pile of legal documents, she felt a tap on her shoulder. It was Lily, holding up a drawing. It was a picture of the three of them, a family, sitting together in the living room, smiling. Emily smiled, a faint but genuine smile. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Lily beamed. "We're a family, right?" "Yes," Emily said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "We are." That simple, innocent question hit Emily harder than she expected. Lily didn't understand the full extent of the battle they were facing. But Emily did. This little girl, with her innocence and boundless love, was the reason Emily was fighting. Lily had given her a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She had built a life with Jack and Lily, a life that was hers, free from the control and expectations of her mother. "I won't let them take you away from me," Emily whispered, her heart swelling with determination. "I won't let anyone take you." Jack walked over, standing beside her. He placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, offering silent support. They didn't need to say anything. They both knew what they had to do. But as the legal battle dragged on, Catherine was relentless. She hired top-tier lawyers, using her wealth and influence to intimidate and pressure Emily. Every court appearance felt like a personal attack, and Emily began to feel the weight of the world on her shoulders. The pressure of facing her mother, of fighting for her new family, was becoming unbearable. One day, as Emily and Jack sat in their living room, preparing for another hearing, the phone rang. It was the lawyer. "Emily," the lawyer's voice was serious. "I've got bad news. Catherine has managed to pull some strings. She's filed for full custody of Lily, and it looks like the court may grant it." Emily's heart sank. She felt like the ground beneath her was slipping away. She had tried to do everything right. She had built a life here, a family. But now, it seemed like everything was falling apart. Jack stood up, his face hardening. "We're not giving up. We can still fight this." Emily nodded, but the weight of it all was starting to take its toll. She had never been so afraid in her life. The thought of losing Lily, of losing everything she had fought for, was more than she could bear. But she refused to let her mother win. She would not be forced back into that world. The day of the final hearing arrived. Emily, Jack, and Lily sat in the courtroom, surrounded by lawyers and legal representatives. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Emily sat on the edge of her seat, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea how this was going to play out, but she knew she couldn't afford to lose. Catherine entered the room, her presence immediately commanding attention. She walked past Emily without a glance. taking her seat with the same cold, calculated expression that Emily had grown to hate. The judge called the proceedings to order, and the battle began. Catherine's lawyer presented their case with precision, pulling out all the stops, testimonials, financial records, evidence of Emily's past decisions. The argument was clear. Emily was unfit to raise Lily. She was unstable, and her life was too chaotic to provide a stable home. Emily's lawyer, however, fought back with everything he had. He painted a picture of a woman who had turned her life around, someone who had found love, stability, and a sense of belonging with Jack and Lily. He argued that Emily had a right to build her own future, separate from her mother's influence. The court deliberated for what felt like hours, the tension in the room palpable. Emily clutched Jack's hand tightly, her breath shallow as she waited for the decision that would determine the rest of her life. Finally, the judge returned. After careful consideration, the judge began, his voice steady. The court has decided in favor of Emily Harris. The request for full custody is denied. Emily felt her heart stop for a moment before the words registered. She could hardly believe it. The battle was over. She had won. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she looked at Jack, who was smiling with relief. They had done it. They had kept their family together. They had fought for the life they wanted, and they had won. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Jack continued to build their life together. Emily started focusing more on her work, finding fulfillment in the small cafe that had become her second home. She spent more time with Lily, watching her grow into a bright, curious little girl. And with Jack, she felt the weight of the past, lifting. Slowly but surely. As the family sat together in the living room one evening, Emily looked around, a sense of peace settling in her chest. She had built something real, something that mattered. She had fought for it, and she had won. "We're a family," Emily said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Lily nodded eagerly, her face lighting up with a smile. "Yes, we are." Jack looked at Emily, his expression full of love and pride. "We always have been," he said, his voice steady and sure. And in that moment, Emily realized that, finally, she was home.